Brian Woodard. Wanted to ask, obviously getting a well-oiled machine is one of the key components of having an effective team, having 100% buy-in, but that rarely happens. How do you handle the other side of those employees where they're not always buying in, they're not always clicking with what you're expecting? How long a leash do you give them, and how do you handle the situations when your first several attempts aren't going their way?
Well, that doesn't happen to me. I think that setting goals, professional development plans have become a helpful tool for me because it's something that I can actually use to say, hey, did you meet your goal here? And we can actually have measures and dates of things. I know that that's been helpful. Utilize the tools that you have. Motivation for employees is a difficult thing sometimes, but you always have to check in with them. And sometimes at the end of the day, you have to make hard decisions about whether or not they're in the best fit for in the best position for the organization, or if this is the right career or the right place for them. And that's tough. I think that the solid thing for me, though, is to be able to have that history and to document all of that history and to know that at the end of the day, we've done the best we can to help develop our employees.
I think as best we can when we remove subjectivity and have systems and processes that allow us to evaluate objectively, like scorecard data. If it's not working, we know we're right to go, and it's not I'm picking on an employee. I want to help turn that trend, right, and help that employee. So I think coaching, mentorship, coaching, nothing moves without gratitude. And I've seen just humbly talking to an employee who seemed disengaged, sort of mailing it in, been with the organization a long time, and just saying, you remind me a lot of me when I was in a role that I didn't want to be in. I'm seeing a lot of my past self in you. And so what's going on? And it turns out he had medical things that were going on in his life that he hadn't disclosed, some challenges, and then he expressed the desire to do more and to be more in the organization. And, a little while back, he just received a big promotion to a new department, and he's a software designer for us. And because that conversation helped him become more self-aware, helped him understand that he wasn't meeting the expectations, not of me, of the mission, right? And just being open and honest with him and showing him that I cared. And they don't all turn like that, but that's a really good example of how that can transform an employee who likely was going to exit into somebody who's doing more for the mission.
Excellent. Another question?
Good morning. I know that as CEOs and presidents you have to be competent, but there are times, as you mentioned, you may not always be correct. Could you share with some of us your most humbling experience and what you took away from that?
How long do we have? Goodness, I'm a relatively new CEO. I've only been a CEO for 2 years, 6 months, and 32 days and 9 minutes. Not that I'm counting or anything. I think every day is a humbling experience, actually, for any leader. And you're all leaders, no matter what your position is. Being a leader isn't about your title. Being a leader is how do you portray yourself and how are you moving forward in the world. But I've made some decisions that were really hard for my organization, very much a culture shift, and some of those worked exceptionally well, and some of them didn't. They sort of fell over like a lead balloon, if a balloon falls, but you know what I mean. And what you have to be willing to do as a leader when you make decisions is assume the consequences of those decisions. That's the biggest thing. And you can't be so intimidated to make a change or to make a decision that you're frozen, because you're never going to get anywhere, nor is your organization. But you have to be willing to accept the consequence of it, admit that you're wrong, and hey, guys, I made a mistake, or I didn't choose the right answer here. and then try and resolve it, fix it, just like you do when you go to your supervisors. Here's the problem and here's the solution. So that's sort of what I have tried to do when I've maybe not made the right choice is, okay, how can I recalibrate and either fix it or redirect?
Great. Another question? There's one in the back on the right that she has had her hand up for. This right.
That's right. I'll talk to you later about my most humble unexpected.
Thank you. And first I want to ask Margaret, can your husband be my husband's mentor for purchasing Christmas gifts? Because that would be great to get professional coaching. You are talking a lot about different professional development opportunities, and we are very fortunate to have the Edith Bush Institute have valuable and very affordable training, but then we also are learning a little bit within, best standards within our particular discipline, so it can be taxing on the wallet. If there is not currently a culture of professional development within your organization, what is maybe a creative way so it's not constantly hitting your personal wallet and that you incorporated those kinds of professional development opportunities if you maybe there wasn't a line item for that within your workplace?
Being a not-for-profit, one of the things that we all have is we have these things called boards of directors, and we also have volunteers, and we have donors who own businesses. It's to talk with them because they're always doing training activities within their companies and ask, can I have a seat? Can we be a part of that? And just let people know that you are seeking these types of opportunities, and they spread the word, and again, use your community. But it all starts with you articulating what you're seeking.
And to that, getting creative with it. And also making sure that you're motivating yourself. Sometimes, unfortunately, you may be working with someone who isn't the best leader or isn't helping you develop. That's reality. But getting creative with it, I can't tell you how much I've learned from just watching TED Talk videos. It doesn't have to be a course that you are going to and paying hundreds of dollars to take. There's so many free resources out there that are available. So getting creative with that would be.
And don't forget about your peers. I have breakfast the first Monday morning of every month with 3 other executive directors, and I learn so much from them. And it's just a scheduled first Monday morning breakfast. So find your group that you can learn from, that you're comfortable with, that you trust, that you can openly share with. And your peers are just so wonderfully wonderful.
And the other thing I would offer is that, remember, we are a business. I have a lot of staff that ask to participate in things. I have to share the little amount of professional development dollars we can allocate. So just bear that in mind. Don't hesitate to say, I'd like to have more information about this, I'd like to learn about this. There's nothing wrong with that, but just bear in mind that we would, as much as I would love for every one of my staff people to have a national conference experience every year, it's not going to happen. It's just simply not going to happen.
Good morning. I want to compliment all of you. I'm a senior executive retired from a major nonprofit, and I live here, retired here. But here's a question, because I still help out in hiring. I'm on some boards. What suggestions do you have that would make them stand out in their paper application? And then also, what do you look at when you check their references? What type of questions do you ask people that they have references from?
I think one thing, as far as the paper representation, resumes, cover letters, is to be benefits focused, not feature focused. I did these things, and these things. I think it's a lot more effective from the start to really focus on the impacts that I made, the measurable outcomes, right? The ROI of me being in that seat, in that company. So focusing on conveying your benefits, not only on paper, in your interview, if you're asked a question, think about that. Think about how you're going to make that leader's life easier, how you're going to create more ROI for that mission. Tilting that way, I think, is helpful.
As far as the questions that we ask and try to learn about you, is don't give me somebody who won't tell me anything. It doesn't help. I need somebody who's going to be able to tell me what you've actually done, your contributions, challenges, opportunities, what they've done to help you develop, where they think your next step of development is. Those are the kinds of things that I'm interested in. But what's happening today is, in most instances, most HR offices will not tell us anything. So you've got to tell me somebody who will tell me. You've got to give me somebody who'll talk to you.
You have to get through the first step of it, which is to have your resume accepted and to get called in for the interview. It really has to speak. It does mean you have to use good verbs. There's your English major there.
And spell things correctly.
Yeah. Not as funny as it sounds. You know, it's a representation of you. When you look at the job posting, look at the verbs they're using. Use the exact same ones because that's what they're looking for. The other comment I'll make quickly about when you call for references, that's often hit or miss whether or not people will really provide a good reference. But it's really about the interviewer having the right questions so that somebody can actually respond to them. So I recently was responding to someone calling about a past employee, and they didn't ask me any of the right questions. So the questions really need to be about skill, really need to be about how well he or she did their job. You know, those questions that you're asking really do need to be about how was he or she as a team member? Were there expectations of them working in the community? How did he do that? Those are the kinds of questions that I wish they would ask, and I would be very happy to respond to, because that's what ultimately, after you've gone through the review of the resume, you've gone through the interview, that you want to know. So, my answer is on that. We have time for one more, Karen?
We have time for probably 2 or 3 more.
Okay, good. Here's one here in front.
Margaret, while she's coming down, I will tell you one little trick with resumes, guys, that most people don't do. Most folks find somebody who's going to help them write their resume, and they like all the bells and whistles with it. But think about finding 5 or 6 people who traditionally view resumes to hire people. And hopefully those people are not your friends. And say, you know, read this, tell me what questions you would have about this resume. What would you want to know in order for you to say, okay, I want to meet this person? You'd be surprised at the things that you're not answering. So take the time to do that.
Now, Tony, I will say that I'm married to an HR leader, and she has no problem being honest with me.
Actually, it was kind of similar to what you just stated. I was wondering, how do I craft my resume showcase its character than just skills, so I do make myself different and can get that call back?
It's hard. I know when I was trying to write my resume, going, how do I do this on paper? And just continue to craft it. If you're doing multiple interviews, after you've conducted an interview, go back and take a look at your resume and go, you know, I didn't think about it this way. Let me see if I can tell my story. Because that's, in essence, what your resume is. It tells your professional story. And an amazing cover letter that isn't on odd-looking stationery, doesn't have your picture on it. Those kinds of things are also helpful, but continue to craft your story, and I agree with Tony, have lots of people look at it.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Vicki Landon. I want to know if either of you would be comfortable speaking to how you view your role as a interpreter, ambassador, conduit between the board of directors and your staffs.
I can speak to that. I work with 2 organizations. We have every other month we have a board meeting, so that means I get a board meeting every month, right? A lot of practice, right? But I think that's really important to be that effective conduit between, right? Because they're a part of the team, like it was alluded to before. They've got to have the confidence in what the staff is doing and how the leadership is driving the organization. Who here wants to be busy, care about something, volunteer your time, but have a very low confidence that what you're helping do will be executed? No one, right? So a lot of the ways that we convey that is by demonstrating to the board the follow-through, the action items, our system of accountability, how we maintain visibility, measure and monitor, reward, right? All those things show, in addition to saying, yes, that was done, of course, all those things can really build that confidence between the board and the organization. And then we did a client, it was like an employee climate survey to understand how the employees, from a third party, how do they feel about working here? And it drilled into a lot of areas. And one of the things that came up were they wish they could have a little more interaction with the board of directors. And so we go to the board, we talk about that, bring it in, and it helps enhance our culture.
We started a 30-minute info session before each board meeting where different departments will come in and sort of do a deep dive into a particular issue. So that gives the board the opportunity to, one, learn more about what we're trying to accomplish, and two, it gives some face time for more than just the executive team to get to know the board. That's been pretty successful.
One last question.
Hello, I'm Miranda Katie. There's been a lot of talk today about cohesiveness and building relationships throughout our organizations and throughout the community. And I think you've all set forth a really great example of representing that. So my question to you is, what partnerships have you developed, either non-traditional or traditional, with nonprofits or for-profits within the community, with a different organization pairing up to better your influence throughout the community?
I have a cool example, and one of them's sitting way back there. But we partner with, we work with the blind and visually impaired, right? Well, we partnered with a food banks, and Second Harvest Food Bank in Central Florida to conduct an annual event called Dining in the Dark, where it's literally completely blacked out. And the Orlando SWAT team are your waiters with night vision goggles. And when we started, and it's 4 courses, you have to find the wine and pour it. You can't see your hand in front of your face. But I did have a comment early on, and when we were working on the partnership, food bank, blindness. But you know what? We obviously we're both in the same sector to improve our community and build it from the inside out. But when you're visually impaired, you might not see your food. You don't know where it's coming from, and the people benefiting from Second Harvest don't know where their food is and where it's coming from. So there's a lot of alignment there, and I think that it's healthy for us to collaborate because we learn a tremendous amount from Second Harvest. They've got an amazing organization and team. And then likewise, back through us, we can have that same engagement. And we have the opinion that the community likes to see this type of thing. And at the end, we get testimonials live. People cry. But Dave Krepko does a good job walking around with the microphone and stirring people up. But you'll hear people who were supporters of Second Harvest really connecting with visual impairment challenges, and then likewise in reverse, people from Lighthouse as well. So it's a great way to cross-pollinate too.
July 27th.
That sounds so cool. I really want to go. I think collaboration is everything, and you are always an ambassador of your organization. Unfortunately, there is no switch that you can turn it off, right? So there's no point in time where we go out into the community where we aren't leaders and ambassadors for the organization. So your personal interests and things that you're involved in the community become part of your networking. I'm interested in the performing arts, so when I go to things that I'm doing on my own or with my family, I'm still a representative of the organization. And so I'm always carrying business cards and meeting people and telling them what I do and giving my elevator speech and doing that. So I think it's just key to live as an ambassador of the organization and to always make those connections because they're everywhere. In this room, there are so many connections.
I would also encourage you, there are multiple Habitat affiliates in Central Florida, which is absolutely mind-boggling. But what we've tried to do is collaborate with a sister affiliate, where in years past we may have seen them as a competitor. In some ways they are, certainly. We're still all working for the same dollars, but we're coming together and we're trying to determine what can we do together to make our community more successful. So I would encourage you to do that. We are one big family and we are trying to benefit the betterment, to the betterment of our community. So I would encourage you to reach out and establish relationships like that as well.
Thank you all. I'm going to wind things up before I hand it back to Karen. First of all, there's an article being sent to you titled Getting Ahead in the Mission-Driven Sector, Creating Your Nonprofit Career Trajectory. You're going to like it, and that should be in your inbox as you return to your offices. Second, I want to remind you that we will present the 2017 Central Florida Nonprofit Compensation and Benefits Report the morning of June 30th. We're thrilled with all of the participation we've had from all of you, so I can't express enough how grateful I am, but outstanding report. And since we have been capturing this data now since 2007, 10 years worth, really excellent data for you. So join us the morning of June 30th. If you sat here thinking that it might be time for you to pursue your MBA, Crummer offers its Friends and Family Open House on Saturday, June 10th. And I know there are a few of you already here. And finally, if you don't already have it bookmarked, the Edith Bush Institute website has the strongest job posting for nonprofit jobs anywhere in America. Okay, maybe not. But definitely in Central Florida. So I want to encourage you to be sure you post your job openings and be sure you look there for job openings and study them. Because you study those job openings, you will learn more and more of what the expectations are, the requirements for, and the hopes of those who are going to be hiring. So study those job postings. Karen.
Great. And again, thank you all so much for a great panel this morning. Let's give Our winner for the hashtag today is ArizoJana, is your Twitter profile. So come see me after this for your certificate, and have a great afternoon, a great Friday, and we look forward to seeing you all in our continuing workshops.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.